up a bit
I
here,
think we're good though, brother.
a little bit.
All right. Okay, man. We are, hold on a second. Okay. We are on, man. We are on, and good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. And welcome again to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I am your host, Mark Ross, and with me this evening is a fellow Marine Corps veteran and a podcaster himself. His name is Johnny Martinez. Brother Johnny, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Just a few things before we get started, Brother Johnny. I want to give a shout out to a fellow friend of mine. His name is Khalil Sikander. He has published a book and he wanted me to shout it out. So here it is. I'm shouting his book out. It's called The Empire State of Mind: 5 Keys to Unlock Mental Toughness. The book I goes into some detail about his upbringing in New York, and through his upbringing and the things that he went through, he wanted to write about it and share some ways that he got tough. He had to toughen up mentally. So yeah, check out his book. The book is titled Empire State of Mind: 5 Keys to Unlock Mental Toughness. All right, brother. Let's get into it, man. Johnny, first question I usually ask my guests: where are you from and what do you do? So go for it, Johnny.
I was born in Palm Springs, well, technically Indio, California. I moved out to Wisconsin when I was a year old, and I've been here besides my time in the military ever since. So I'm located out here in Wisconsin, and we'll be out here for the foreseeable future.
Okay, that's what's
Yeah,
up.
and I am currently I wear a couple of hats, I guess you could say, but my day job and primary career for the time being is as an electrician, and so I do that as a non-union electrician. Um, some of the other things I suppose that I partake in is like you mentioned earlier, is a podcast that I host myself, and that is the Warrior Healer podcast. That is on all platforms. I'm currently taking a little hiatus, and so this is my jump back into the podcast scene, and
That's what's
uh,
up.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then I guess finally to wrap up my summary there is I have also been working with clients as a spiritual advisor for the last couple of months. And so that is primarily working over the phone or Zoom and meeting weekly or bi-weekly with individuals and working with them. Primarily, the topics are of rage and anger,
Mm,
and oftentimes involve some sort of military discipline or
mm.
first responder type of discipline. And so, yeah, yeah,
Awesome, brother. Awesome.
it's pretty good.
Speaking about rage and anger, I know you during our initial conversation you talked in good detail about your upbringing, and I don't want to, you know, put the cart before the horse. So, if you will, Johnny, can you please go into your upbringing, and because this is kind of it serves as a foundation of why we are having this conversation, because it led you to do other things and
Hmm.
forth why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to preface it all, I will say that I'm a believer that you enter into this realm and into this world with a soul contract. And I
Mm,
think a lot of individuals don't ever figure out what that contract is,
mm,
or they're not open to being aware of what it may be. I over my past few years of plant medicine ceremonies and doing a lot of personal work, do believe that my soul contract, again, and I say that very particularly, is for rage and anger and how to handle it and cope with it and work with it. My childhood I know it wasn't horrendous. I've heard, tons and tons of stories, right, about people's upbringings that would trump mine over and over.
Sure.
That what I like to remind individuals is that trauma isn't based on the situation itself, it's based on the reaction that we have. Like one of the greatest PTS inducing moments for people in the world, not just military in particular, is car accidents, right?
Oh,
That's the biggest uh
really?
PTSD, yes, sir. At least it was the last time that I looked into it, I would say. Um, but as of recent, again, with a lot of the growth and healing and work that I've been doing, came to the realization that I robbed myself of my own childhood and I took away love from myself. And so I always viewed my childhood from this perspective of, I'm like, people just don't understand me. Johnny's too much. I'm always the outlier. I was getting in trouble constantly. And I mean, like, serious trouble, not little stuff. Like, I'm burning people's mail. That's a felony offense. I'm doing like, I'm breaking and entering. I'm stealing shit from cars. I'm throwing rocks at cars and breaking windows and shooting people with airsoft gun. Just the list goes on and on and on. And I was an absolute terror of a child. And, come to find out, doesn't take a genius necessarily, but it did take me about 28 years to figure out that my anger was because I was sad. Man, I was never heard. No one ever respected what I had to say because there was no place or space, more importantly, for me to have any sort of vulnerability. I never met my father. So when we moved to Wisconsin, I remember pretty clearly, and I have very few memories from when I was a child, of my grandpa telling me at like maybe 3 or 4 years old, roughly, like, you're the man of the house.
Mm, mm.
Right there, you strike away childhood.
That's
Uh,
it.
and
Yeah.
so because of, and I'm not gonna place blame on him or my mom or my father. This is my journey, my path, and I'm grateful for all of it. Um, but I definitely robbed not only myself, but I guess the child self of me uh, very, very young. And my coping for that, my walls and barriers that I put up were that of rage and anger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
rage and anger, some people have, like everything, different perspectives on what that means. So I guess to elaborate, what I mean by rage and anger is having thoughts of like, I could go rape and pillage a village right now and not feel anything. I could break up with my wife or divorce my wife or break up with the love of my life because she pushed the wrong buttons a couple of times and I had a bad day at work.
Mm.
That's the rage and anger I'm talking about. Yelling at your kids when they didn't do anything wrong and you're being controlling, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I ran that course from my earliest memory is of anger and being in trouble. And it ran its course all the way up through the military, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's
Yeah.
encouraged in a way, at least the
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
the energy of it is. And so yeah, I was best friends with my rage and anger. It was my only real friend.
Mm.
And what it did, or what I've come to find out, is it robs me of all even thought of love at any level. No one in this world loves me when I'm angry because, they can hurt me or that might be vulnerable. And if I'm too vulnerable, now I look like a fucking pussy. Sorry. I don't know if we can swear here, right?
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Okay. Then I
Go
look
for
like a fucking pussy, right? And that's just not the case. And so we create all these stories, and I ran and created all of the stories in the world, just like everyone. And that's how we operate. And uh, I just came to a point where, man, I had enough of my stories, but I wasn't sure how to get rid of them. And sometimes, which I guess I'll get into here for a moment, you might put all the books down, but every once in a while, something happens where you might walk over to the bookshelf and pull it back out and give that story a read again. And maybe you spiral down the path of, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts or ideations, etc. Rage and anger, obviously, coming within that.
Hmm.
And I'd say, I'll make note to that real quick here, and that, you know, you were supposed to come and sit on my podcast two different times. We rescheduled, and I can't honestly say how heartbroken that made me. I was actually very sorry, and I mean
I
sorrowful.
was I was
Um,
feeling a little type of way. I was like, okay, you yeah,
yeah.
second.
So I still look forward to it. But as I explained in those messages, the reasons I canceled was, the only promise I made to my audience is that I will not do the podcast if my cup is not full. And for about 3 weeks there, I myself still managed to spiral and let myself kind of go out of control into the feelings and projections of the stories that I've created.
Hmm.
A couple of weeks there, and all those things resurfaced. Depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, like it all came as a waterfall.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
No
uh,
doubt.
I rescheduled because of that, and we did the proper steps, and we have resurfaced and recentered.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we had this time to get it together.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I look, you know, all questions and all BS aside, we as Marines, the battle still it's not over. We just learn to deal with it, right? But every now and again, it can peek its head, and it can give you a quick one, and it can knock you down a couple of steps. So, but the good thing about people like yourself and me is that I think we're now equipped here to recognize when we're going left. We're versus years ago, we just acted.
Hmm.
We just boom. We just, we reacted. So now we are more in that mental space where we can see ourselves, twitching a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We're trying not to embrace the BS. So now we're equipped mentally, you know, to see it coming.
Hmm.
So now when you see the punch coming, you can swerve.
That's
You know
right.
what I
That's
mean?
right.
You can
And
you can you,
sometimes, if you're nice and stubborn, like I like to be, you want to the punch, right?
no,
Yeah,
no. Hey
yeah,
man, I'm 55, bro. I've come to my happy place where I'm dodging, man. I'm
right.
tired of getting hit
That's
because
right.
I've been where you are. I've been there. I've been down that depression, suicidal, rage mode. I've been there. It's not a good feeling to be in. I don't recommend it. 0 stars.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely,
you know
man.
what I mean? So, yeah. But so I get that. But I know that you also said in our initial interview about your dad, I think it fueled your rage as a kid, and that's what led you to sign up for the military.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, um, man, for me, Johnny, uh, boot camp was a horrible experience for me, man. That was a horrible, traumatic experience. I can tell you, my wife and we went to San Diego for our honeymoon, and I located where MCRD was, Johnny. I got to the gate, and something told me to not go in. I could not walk in the base.
Mm.
Something in my mind just clicked, and I could not walk any further. I turned around. I said, babe, we got to go to the car. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. So the trauma is still there for me.
Hmm.
You know, great place to go. I'll go back, but I can't go in there. So how was boot camp for you?
Oh man, it was a doozy, that's for sure. Um, yeah, to your note and to what I was speaking about, yeah, obviously, I had father figures, my mother, bless her soul, she tried her absolute best. She's been married and divorced 3 times. And so that was all three up in till I was in high school. And
Mhm.
the divorce I think happened somewhere around high school. And she started dating the guy that she's currently with, and I think, he's managed to find a way and calms her down, and so it all works. But um, yeah, I had father figures, I had some structure, but at the foundation, uh, the individual, my primary caretaker was my mother,
Mhm.
a single mother,
Yeah.
to me and my older sister, who was also causing a ruckus. And at times, my stepbrothers, who were also causing a ruckus. I will take responsibility for that. I think I may have roped them in a little bit there, but yeah, going into the military, it was kind of my first, I guess, let me jump back to finish that up. I guess my mom, she tried her absolute best and she was very set in her masculine, warehouse worker for like 27, 8 years, I think, something in that range. Um, grandparents or her parents, owners of bar. And so talks like a sailor, just very, strict and, her way is the law.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um,
She had to be.
that's right. But as a young man, especially as one that's bigger and stronger and is very, toxic, masculine, I will say, and I say that, with emphasis in that, at some point she tried to ground me for something. I can't remember exactly the situation. She does very, very vividly, but she called and asked what I was doing, and you better get your ass home.
Mm.
You're fucking grounded. And I said, you know. I ain't fucking doing it. I'm not coming home.
Oh,
You know,
you said that to your mama?
I did, and it took me until I was like a senior in high school or something, right? But at
Oh
that
no.
point, you come to realize like there's a level of respect that you have as my mother and at a level of discipline that you can do, and I got fucking beat all the time. Hit, I will say, and discipline. I won't say beat necessarily. I definitely caused most of it, or I don't think it was a horrible reaction to have for some of the things that I was doing. And yeah, so I go to boot camp, and I've always, my whole life, have tried to just have fun as much as I can, no matter where I am, because there's no time for
Yeah.
bullshit. And I hate being angry, and I'm so good at it
Yeah.
that, man, I don't need to see that thing. I don't need to shake hands with that monster anymore. But it's always there, ready to jump out. Um, but so I went in there with the same mentality. I came in and smiling and happy, and that got shut down. And um, I remember one particular story that broke me. I think most people have that like you got broke moment. And mine was I kept getting in trouble at drill practice, but the guy in front of me was the guy messing up. And I'm watching
Mm.
and they kept yelling at me. And so I'm getting screamed at, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill this guy, like,
Maybe
oh
because you were smiling too much, bro.
yeah, I'm like, this is fucking bullshit, man. Like this, I can't be doing this.
Gotta
And
stop smiling, man.
right. And so eventually I get pulled out of there in dress uniforms. I think like C uniforms or something. And he hands me a rifle, takes me over to the sand pit, and starts getting after me.
He smoked you?
Oh yeah, like I've never been smoked before.
Oh,
And then because I feel like I'm getting in trouble and I know I'm not messing up because a drill is really not that challenging if you pay attention and you have good body function and mechanisms, right? You have a good understanding as an
right.
athlete, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to get me to yell back at him and respond and aye, aye, sir, and give him it. And I won't do it. because I didn't do this. I don't deserve what's happening, and you're not going to get me to break right now. And eventually he comes over and he's kicking the sand in your face, doing push-ups and
Yeah.
etc. And at some point I said, I thought under my breath, but apparently quite loud or loud enough, um, you're a fucking asshole. And he heard me. And that was the first time that things really got spicy for me, man. And
Oh
um,
my goodness.
unfortunately, up until that point, or fortunately, I guess, whichever way you choose to view it, was, squad leader or platoon sergeant or whatever throughout most of the course. And so uh it wasn't like I had gone unnoticed until that point. They knew who I was. Um, but yeah, he heard me say that to him, and he brings me up, puts me at attention, and I remember, goes over my back right shoulder and he goes, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" I said, "This recruit didn't say anything to you, sir." And then he walks around me, he looks me in the face. Sergeant Pranky, he picked up staff sergeant when I was in there. He was our
Oh,
kill. His first year as a kill, our first cycle as a kill hat. And he's looking at me right in the face and he goes, "I heard what you said, but I'm giving you one chance to own up to what you just said." I said, "This recruit called you a fucking asshole, sir." He said, "Tight. That's what I thought." You know, grab your shit. You know, bro, I got smoked for 3 hours solo, maybe.
Ooh, Lord have mercy.
He'd run me from sand pit to sand pit all around MCRD.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
yeah, and I just got smoked. And then to introduce the mental aspect to it, besides me just getting smoked with a rifle and dress
all the
uniform,
time. Yeah.
is he's yelling at me, man, and he's getting into me, right? And he knows he's getting into me, and he's telling me, "I'm gonna get your ass drop back a
You're
platoon
gonna
or
get recycled.
whatever."
You're gonna get recycled.
That's right. You're gonna get recycled and all this, and it's close enough to end of boot camp where I'm starting to fucking cry now because I'm like, my family's got plane tickets and they've never leave Wisconsin, and like I'm such a failure again, man. And like I just got crushed. And I remember I wrote home and I told my
Man.
mom, like, I don't think this is for me. And it definitely changed my perspective on a lot of things. Overall, I think it gave me a lot of discipline that I was looking for, and
Sure.
a means of directing it. I won't say properly by any means, um, but in a means that isn't like going out and like killing people or getting in fights and shit all the time, you know?
I think we all been through that phase where we just want to fight and get all of that anger out, bro. Especially our first year, we're just so pent up and what I mean,
Hmm.
ready to take the world on, brother.
Yeah, yeah, and don't get me wrong, man. I fought a lot. I was getting in fights a great amount, really, up until uh, uh, I unfortunately am spacing out, but unfortunately, what it took is the death of one of my close friends um, in Miramar, California, and we were drinking buddies, and I wasn't out there, and he got in a fight with a couple guys, and beat all their asses. Jihad Cherry was his name, and they ended up coming back and hitting him with a pipe, and
Wow.
it killed him. And I
Wow.
remember, my chief warrant officer was man enough to pull me aside and have a conversation with me. And he's like, "Look, man, I know that you're grieving right now, but I need you to remember this and think like you're getting to the point, you're getting big enough, I'm whatever, 6 foot 225 at the time, of just muscle and aggressive as all hell. Like I'm ready to kill people even
Yeah,
on
yeah,
get on the street. And
yeah.
people aren't going to fight you, man. They're going to start stabbing or shooting you." And he's like, "Unfortunately, your buddy had to be that example for you." And
Mm,
I can say, sitting here now, looking back to it, I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the lesson and the understanding that I took from that. But
yeah.
till then, hothead, man, fighting a lot.
I get it. I get it. Welcome everybody that's coming on to the show. If you guys have any questions during this conversation, please uh, list your questions and I will ask Brother Johnny here And if it's directed to me, I'll answer the question. If it's directed to Johnny, I'll leave the question for him to answer. All
All
right,
questions are welcome.
all right, all right. Just for the record, what was your job in the Marine Corps?
I was 6317, so I was communication, navigations, and weapon system tech on
Mm,
F-18 Charlie.
okay, okay.
So yeah, I was a nerd and a air winger.
Well, when you said communications, I was like, oh, okay, he's a
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. No, man, I got into it. I won an open contract actually. I was hoping for infantry more than anything in the world.
Oh,
But
you
my
got lucky then because if you go open contract, I mean, that's 95% guaranteed you're going to be infantry.
Yeah, that was the intention because my sole goal in going into the military, I mean, and maybe we'll get into it, right? But was to take life legally and
Right.
and to see what that felt like because I thought I was capable and I desired it.
Yeah.
Let out some of this anger and rage, I
Indeed.
thought.
Indeed.
And yeah, so I went in open contract hoping no matter what to go and qualify for MARSOC. And so open contract it was.
Well, maybe it was God's plan to not put you as infantry, brother, because you probably would have done a lot of damage
Yeah, yeah.
or had some damage done to you.
And I think part of me was ready to accept that. I think, as of recently, looking back in the past and my track record and, being a pretty aggressive alcoholic for, upwards of 10 years about, how I was living my life was just so fast paced that, a different perspective on it was I was kind of suicidal the whole time. I never really cared if I was going to die.
Hmm.
And so it allowed me to just do some wild shit every once in a while. And I think some of those, I I do believe that there was something looking out. And
Indeed.
uh,
Oh, it definitely was. I'll call that for you. It
yeah,
was.
yeah, wow, yeah,
I'll call that shot for you. But before I ask this question, I'm looking at your background, bro, and I'm digging your wall. I
thank
see
you.
you're a cigar smoker, so I'm noticing you got, yeah, cigar boxes on your wall. That's pretty dope, man.
I will say I'm a touch of a fraud. I don't smoke this many by any means. I do enjoy an occasional cigar though. Yeah,
Dig it, dig it. I'm,
my
I'm digging
mom,
that wall. I'm digging
yeah,
your
my
wall, bro.
mom's boyfriend is the cigar salesman around these parts, so uh,
Indeed,
yeah, that's
indeed.
a cool idea.
Well, speaking of alcohol issues, when did it when did it go out of control for you?
As soon as I started, man, immediately, it became an outlet. It became a suppressant of some of those, wanting to jump down people's throats and getting wild. It was again, man, I'm just trying to have fun. I
Yeah.
don't think I was ever really the individual that got drunk and wanted to fight or anything, just wanted to have fun.
Mm.
Um, but I would say, I think I started drinking going into sophomore year of high school, so like 15-ish.
Okay.
And my grandparents owned a bar and a restaurant, and the little thief that I was would go down into the basement where I knew I could sneak alcohol from them. And so, I stole alcohol from my grandparents for a really long time from their business.
Mm.
And yeah, so I took a whole bunch one time and I went and hung out with one of my buddies. We drank in a backyard and had an absolute blast. And after that, it became the normal. And by normal, I mean it was everything. Like you guys want to go see a movie. It's like, yeah, I could have a six pack on the way, or we could get there early and have a couple shots, or Mike's Hard Lemonade was a big thing at that time before the seltzer kick, So like chug some Mike's Hard Lemonades or
Right,
whatever.
right, right, right.
Yeah, but it was constant. It was everything that we could do, anytime that we could get away. And I do say we because it was my friend group. We were all really getting after it for the most part, and so that was kind of it.
Okay. And what about your PTSD symptoms? When did those present itself?
This brings on a topic that, whenever I start discussing veteran issues with individuals, the first one that always comes up is, mental health and PTSD and all of these other mental health disorders or not really disorders, conditions rather, right? But
Sure. Yes. Yes.
um, I think all of my PTSD symptoms came before the military. I don't think almost anything that happened to me in the military was PTS inducing.
Mm.
Besides, I did, which is, my transition out. I was not kicked out, but I did get a DUI. Unfortunately, fortunately, again, right? And I don't believe in coincidences, but today, September 11th, in 2016 was the day that I got my DUI. And I totaled my car and it gave me a new perspective on that. But yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know we talked about, our mental health issues and how dark the rabbit hole got for us.
Hmm.
And uh, for me, my PTSD started after the military. Well, let me back that up. My situation was during, like, and as I told you, boot camp was horrible, man, because they had it out for your boy, man. They wanted me to tap out. They didn't want to recycle me. They wanted me to tap out.
Why you in particular, do you feel?
I was always referred to as belligerent. And I don't think that I was, but they had it out for me because I didn't show no fear to them. And they knew that I wasn't afraid of them. Were they bigger than me? It was one guy in particular I was intimidated with because he was much bigger than me. And the lead drill instructor was bigger than me. But he had a cool spirit to him. So, I didn't trip about him as much. But it was the other two, the skinny, short guys, they were on my ass
Hmm.
every day. One of them, his last name is Weaver. I'll never forget his name. He was slim dude. He just had it out for me. He and this other guy, they had it out for me, Johnny, and they made it a point to find any reason to get on me, and I was getting smoked on a daily basis, man. Uh, they did they smoked me so bad. They made me carry a footlocker and jog it around our barracks until they got tired.
Hmm.
So, yeah, they wanted me to tap, but I showed them, Johnny, because I didn't tap. And even at our graduation, not one drill instructor said congratulations to me. Not one. Ain't that something?
Yeah, some brotherhood that you're entering into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, it made me realize that standing your ground, Johnny, it comes at a cost. People will not like you if you're the type of person that stands on his morals. And if your morals are right, if you're standing on your square and doing what you need to do to be a productive, you know, person, or in my case, be a United States Marine, I guess I gave them the impression that, I was just too macho. And I wasn't. I wasn't being macho. I was just being me. I was just being me. Maybe they didn't vibe with the energy that I was giving to them. Maybe they didn't like the fact that I stared at them right in their eye when they came at me. I looked at them.
I mean, there's a reason you can't say me during boot camp, right?
Yeah, but I didn't say me. I mean me in the context as of right now. You
Yeah,
know,
but even though that's like the energy that's welcome there, though, right? That's the energy of there is no individualism. Don't stick up for yourself. No one has a say. You're all scum.
right, right, right. But when they realized that I had a backbone,
Hmm.
that's what pissed him off. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this dude, he's different.
Hmm.
So we're gonna go an extra mile on this guy. We're gonna
Yeah.
make it crack. And no, it just made me work that much harder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
uh,
gives you different abilities if you didn't at some point have those, right? And
yeah,
not necessarily directed for the positive,
you did.
but abilities nonetheless that you can utilize for positive, right? Discipline, structure,
You gave
right?
it to me.
Yeah.
That discipline and structure, man. I mean, it was so drilled into me that I mean, like I said, I'm 55 now, and I still do things like, you know, there's a method to the madness,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it works for me, and I thank them for it. I don't I I wouldn't know them if I saw them out in the street, but I do remember their names though.
Yeah.
And yeah, they left a lasting impression with me. Uh Hurtful to an extent, but uh now that I'm older, wiser, you know, I've learned to let that go. I've learned to let it go. And that was part of my journey, my healing, I guess, it was to let what happened there leave it there. It's not doing me any good holding it now.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I had to let it go. And I feel great by doing it. But I learned in the process, I learned that I'm a lot stronger than I give myself credit for.
Hmm.
And I think that says a lot about many Marines. We are stronger than what we give ourselves credit for because we went through some hell. We went through a lot of stuff that a lot of people couldn't have done. We took a lot of mental abuse, physical. We went through it, right? But that's why the motto is, many are called, but few are chosen. That's why we stand out, brother, because we made it. But I digress, man. Let me get off the box, man. Let me get off the box.
Preach, brother.
Say what?
Preach, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me get off the box, man. Uh, when did you decide to get help for yourself, Johnny? For the alcohol and the rage and whatnot, man. What was your point that said, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna get some help for this.
There's probably I would say north of 50 pretty substantial circumstances that I could sit here and list off of, breaking people's hearts, letting down my mom and taking her to the airport when she visits me because I got drunk and, uh, you know, just a lot of situations that I could list. But what actually got me sober, I've been sober ever since, which has been 4.5, just over 4.5 years now, um, was the birth of my son, or knowing that I was going to be having a child in a couple weeks. So I made it my New Year's resolution because I seen how alcohol had affected my family from every generation that I had met or been able to meet. And quite frankly, it was never of a positive influence. And so, to try and be a change within the family tree for the first time in the Martinez lineage, not being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
My first big contribution, was, man, I can't be hungover and be a dad, and I can't be out partying, and I don't want my son to see me drunk as shit, stumbling around like I've seen every member of my whole entire family my whole life, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the birth of my son ultimately was what got me, I guess, on the straight and narrow as far as sobriety from alcohol goes.
Mm. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Have you ever got a chance to meet your dad and make peace with him?
I have not. He reached out for the one and only time roughly I don't know, we'll say 6 years ago, roughly, 5 years, 6 years ago, over Facebook. And I had added him as a friend just because I remember saying, I don't really care. Let him see,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Be a spectator. I don't really care. That's what this is for, kind of, right?
dig it.
And eventually he sent me a message, and I'm not going to bore you with trying to figure out or remember what it said because I don't remember, but something along the lines of, I've made peace with demons in jail and found God and yada yada, quite a substantial message, and looking back at it, very heartfelt, very meaningful, and I'm grateful for that message. Um, I believe at that time, this was much before my healing ever started to take place. I did contemplate and debate it for a little while, but I responded with something of the sorts of, I don't need a daddy anymore. You kind of fucked that up and missed that opportunity. I don't need a dad anymore. So
Yeah, yeah,
photos or whatever, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I've never met him. I did try one other time when I was in the military. One of my, boot camp friends that goes to my MOS and school and all of that. His dad was pretty high up in the California, the area of, Indio and Palm Springs, where I believe my dad was. I had him search the system for my dad, and he wasn't incarcerated at that point in time, which, I'm grateful for. Uh, Happy to hear that he's doing better. But if he was, I was planning on going to see him. Didn't know what to say.
Right.
Um, and, every time I've thought about it, it's changed. But up until recently, it's uh, got a lot to do with gratitude, you
Yes,
know?
sir. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Johnny.
Yeah.
Talk about your podcast, brother. The Warrior Healing Podcast, man. Let's get into that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the Warrior Healer podcast. And um, I guess how it started or the inception of it was I was at a ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica. I won't bore you with all of the details. I have an episode on it. It's like episode 3 or something like that, I think pretty early on.
Okay.
Um, But I ended up leaving that retreat early because there was some weird things going on that I did not jive with. And for the second substantial time in my life, I stood up for myself and said, that's not right for me. And I have to listen to what's right for me because I haven't really done that most of my life. I'll speak up about it, but I won't really do the right thing still. I'll still just do, silence yourself, compartmentalize, stifle your emotion, and just keep going, right?
Right, right.
And so I came home from that retreat. But during that retreat and one other time previous, I had met this individual by the name of Greg Anderson. He has a podcast called The Endless Endeavor for anyone looking for a great podcast. He's been around for a while now, a couple hundred episodes. Um, but I met him when I was out there. And during our time in Costa Rica, which we spent quite literally probably 23 and a half hours together, uh, we discussed the possibility of me having a podcast for uh, mostly, I guess, life experience at the age that I'm at. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a great thing, but it has, again, given me many tools if I choose to utilize it or view it from that lens. And so when I was out there, I started the business. I bought the rights to the website, which still is not up and running, but someday, we'll get to it.
Right,
Uh, um, and I bought everything that I have. This is where I sit. This is where I sit and record in front of my wall. And so I'm currently in the studio, right? But yeah, I came back and started just having on guests. And the thought was, I was at a place going into that ceremony that was so horrendous that by horrendous, again, I'm referring to, suicide. I don't really have a purpose in life. I don't know what the hell I'm here for or what I'm doing. My son doesn't need a dad anymore because my ex-wife now going through a divorce, ex-wife is engaged and running all of this. And I feel like I had lost everything at that point in time. And to have that support out there and go through that experience and stick up for myself and hear, I've kind of done a lot of shit actually at 31 now. And because of that, and where I'm at and my mental health and my, I guess, journey, if you will, it gives me this reference point that allows me to look back and say, brother, I know what you're saying when you talk about you could kill your fucking girl because she's talking bad to you and you found out she's cheating. I get it
Mm,
because
mm,
I do. Trust me, I know that feeling.
mm,
That was my soul contract to refer to that again, right?
mhm, mhm,
So, um, I was in this place, I guess, to circle back just a touch that, I wanted to ultimately, I was prepared to actually kill myself. Now, would I do it? No, because I have my son and I understand the repercussions that he faces if I do so. That
mm.
was the only thing that was going to keep me here.
Understood.
Would have pretty much done everything to walk the line on it, right?
Sure.
And so coming back from that retreat, I felt like it was a 180. I had my voice. I stood up for myself. I made a stand. I left ceremony early. I paid an extra $1,000 to fly first class back home because I was feeling great. I got everything that I needed from that experience, even though I viewed it in kind of a negative spotlight. What I needed was a strong support network and a bond with a fellow veteran and my brother, who I go and podcast with in 2 days, actually, Greg Anderson, that I referred to in the jungles for a couple of days.
Hmm.
And because of that, and because of the new mental state that I was in coming out of that retreat, I decided, I'm going to do this. And the goal being, everyone has a story, and I think that that's one of the most important things that you can share with someone. And if somebody is going to gift me with the present of their time and the present of listening to their story in as much detail as they would like, then I will I will do it with gratitude and respect. I will hold this space. And so I want individuals to come on and discuss life journeys and circumstances because of sharing some of the hardest things that they've ever encountered. You get to hear how they went through that endeavor or experience or traumatic event. And on the backside, they get to sit here from a different perspective that we shed some light on and say,
Mhm,
like, man, that's pretty cool that that happened because of this, right?
mhm,
It starts to shift the focus from negativity to positivity. It starts to make people that feel alone in that space of, man, I'm ready to off myself because I feel so alone here that, bro, I was there too. I couldn't have gotten any lower.
yeah.
And, and I had all of this life experience and a lot of it being negative. But unfortunately, I learned that way. And I think that majority of individuals do, right? Um, to kind of build my foundation off of. And so just continuing to work towards that, really.
Amen, man. Amen. Well, I'm glad you're doing the work, uh, because
Yeah.
we need more brothers like yourself, and to really, be that voice for veterans and others that are going through. Uh, it's our job to let them know that they're not alone in their struggle, and that help is out there, and that people are actually willing to listen to them. But we need to make ourselves present for them to reach out, right?
That's right. Give them a space of openness and non-judgment because, uh, bro, I got nothing to judge, man. I got nothing to judge.
Uh,
Really.
I am not perfect.
Yeah.
I have no special imagination, man. I have my flaws. I still deal with things, but I have enough grace within my soul to allow me the time to talk with individuals like you
Mm.
and others, and hope that this message will get spread out all around, brother, as far as it can go.
That's
And
right.
just spread the love, spread the awareness, because I think many of us, we live in that bubble and we don't know that there's other people that are living in the bubble.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone goes through trauma, right? Trauma is subjective, right? It's all from the lens of the individual. And so again, by having 70, almost 70 guests on at this point. I have 70 episodes out, and most of them are with guests. You get to, again, hear 70 different perspectives on fundamentally,
Yes.
uh, I happen to find the same trauma, which is failure and self-love, or not enough self-love, and too much self-judgment, man.
Mhm. So what's next for you in your journey, Johnny?
The journey continues, brother. So as I mentioned, I leave to Washington State tomorrow. That is a couple of ceremony experiences I'll be attending out there, one of which, I guess both of them really, I was invited or asked to participate as a guardian or a facilitator, um, somebody that's there to hold space. I'm there to work, and so that's a pretty big transitional step for me. I fulfilled that role in a handful of plant medicine ceremonies, which I am absolutely an advocate for, if you can't tell, right? And so now, as a part of my journey and part of my healing, it's not so hyper focused on me as an individual because I've done a massive amount of work. I really do have all of the tools that I need. It's just how I utilize them. It's staying aware, it's staying present, is really the only cure to anything else that could manifest for me. It's not from outside source. And so yeah, I get to go there and hold space for roughly 30 individuals, and then 2 days later, a couple uh, more individuals will be doing another plant medicine ceremony. So participating in that in the next couple of days. And yeah, like I said, the transition or focus for um, some time now really has been more so, how can I implement change or a perspective on change for other individuals? And what I find that individuals like yourself and like myself and other people that I guess socialize with and try and stay in a tight brotherhood with is, I am a big tattooed muscular guy. I do train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was in the military. I could probably outshoot you. I'll probably outfight you. All of this stuff, and I have the demeanor. I've lived that life. I've absolutely projected out the warrior ethos at all levels, however you want to view it.
Understood.
But because of that, and I say this because it seems to be like a doorway for other guys like us that may be too shut down or too kind of emotionally withdrawn to be open to healing from some of the other individuals that are out there, right? Oftentimes, these ceremonies are held with females, or you go to, energy works and it's mostly females, and it's, hippy dippy and flowers and incense and soft, caressing voices, and I've done all of that and I am an advocate for it. I welcome all of it. I love all of those. But some dude that's coming back from, some pretty serious trauma, and is trying to, his wife's divorcing him and losing his kids, and he's an alcoholic and hooked on pain meds from the VA and etc., right? I hear all the same things,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they need a guy like me where they can keep it real and down to earth. And because again, I have something that I can actually utilize. You have something you can actually look at as a perspective, right? It's not a therapist or one of these guides that's, why don't you try and take a breath? And it's like, that is the answer. But how you're getting it through to some of these individuals, they're not even going to walk through your door, you know?
Hmm.
So that's kind of been the next entryway, right? Doing the spiritual advisory work, working with my clients and individuals, attending ceremonies, and continuing to do the podcasts and work with others and do their podcasts. Like you said, spread the light and continue showing individuals that, you don't have to live in darkness and all of this negativity, because it is a choice, and it's
Yeah.
hard to view it as such. But there are people, there are things that can help you adjust your perspective on that and start to be open to true self-awareness, right?
Yes. Yes. How can people contact you, brother?
You guys can add me on social media at the Warrior Healer Podcast or just Warrior Healer Podcast. Or my personal Instagram is Johnny Jiu Jitsu. Um, and then if you would like to email the podcast or reach out, send your support, or if you would like to work with me, as I had mentioned, on a individual basis, there are possibilities or open to ceremonial experiences if deemed necessary and called to. Um, but that is through warriorhealerpodcast@gmail.com. And if you guys reach out there, we can set up a 20-minute discovery phone call at that time and kind of see what working together would look like and go from there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Uh, I had a good time talking with you, brother Johnny. I really did. And I thank you for uh, having this open time to communicate with me about what it is that you got going on and taking the time to, give a little bit of yourself tonight. So I really do appreciate that because like you said earlier, we've been going back and forth and you're dealing with what you're dealing with and you found a few minutes to open up for me. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for creating this space and this container for
Yes, sir.
individuals to come on and do so, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to getting you on the Warrior Healer podcast.
Hey, man. Wait,
Let me
I'm
come
waiting
back
on you.
on vacation. We'll get you on there, brother.
I'm waiting on you, boss.
That's
Waiting
it.
on you, man.
We'll
So, so one more time, ladies and gentlemen, look out for my brother Khalil Sikandar's book, Empire State of Mind: 5 Keys to Unlock Mental Toughness. It should be coming out soon. Be looking out for that. Uh, and if you see it, buy it. It's a good guy. That's my brother from another mother. So he's a good dude. And this book should be good. All right. So with that being said, this is your boy Mark Ross, and this is the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch us. And thank you again, Brother Johnny, for taking the time to be with me tonight. You guys have yourselves a good rest of your evening and stay tuned for next week's show. God willing, we'll be here. And we got to stay in touch, Brother Johnny.
Absolutely, brother. I got your number. I'll reach out. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
again. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good one. Take care now.